I'm Aryeh Schwartz alongside Rachel Galligan, and welcome to the Winsidr Show, where it's all about the W. It is the best time of the year. It's the WNBA playoffs. We have one game from each of the first round matchups in the books, some blowouts, some close matches, and a lot to discuss. If you like our show, please consider joining our Patreon community, patreon.com/Winsidr. That's patreon.com/Winsidr. For less than a cup of coffee a month, you can directly show support for the hard work we do covering the W. Don't forget to see our amazing staff's written content over at winsidr.com. That's winsidr.com. This season, we expanded our content on a variety of social media platforms. Make sure you're following Winsidr on TikTok, Instagram, Blue Sky, Twitter, and YouTube. If you like wearing your WNBA fandom, we'll take a look at the show notes or at our affiliate links on the Winsidr website. You get to rock the top merch, and we get a little bit of a kickback from these organizations so that we can keep doing what we do in covering the W. Welcome back to the Winsidr Show. Excited to be here with the great Rachel Galligan. So much to discuss. Let's kind of just real briefly, and then we can dive into any of the games. Lynx win by 29 versus the Valkyrie. Aces dominate the Storm 102-77. Mercury, Liberty goes to overtime where the Liberty outlasts the Mercury 76-69. And the Dream take control of the Fever 80-68. Let's start with the Lynx game, then we'll kind of just like go down the games that happened. Lynx game was the first playoff game. Look, there was an initial burst, an impressive start for the Valkyries in that game, but very quickly after the first quarter, or in those last minutes of the first quarter, Minnesota kind of woke up, and from that point forward, it really just became a blowout, a dominant fashion. I had Mitchell on the podcast a few days back, and we were talking about this series and just the Lynx in general, and I kind of had this sense that like the story for the Valkyries has been great and amazing, but we're at that point. Like in the same way that like the happy ending for Minnesota is a championship, right? For the Valkyrie, the happy ending is making the playoffs. They did that. They accomplished that, what seemed like a unattainable goal when the season started. I don't want to like make it sound crazier or harder than it was, but this was an impressive thing. The only expansion franchise, as far as I understand, ever, outside of like, obviously the first year, those were expansion teams and someone had to make the playoffs. But just really, really impressive season by the Valkyries, but we can't ignore what we saw in this game. Rachel, your thoughts on the Lynx taking 1-0 in the best of 3 series?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. The comment about, it's like at some point you hit the wall, amazing story. It's been such an incredible season up there in Golden State. Very, very high likelihood of coach of the year. I mean, it's been the job they've done, winning 23 games is incredibly impressive. And so, I mean, but on the flip side, the Minnesota Lynx have been the number 1 team in the league the entire time, for a reason. Their steadiness, their dominance, their consistency across the board. I mean, 44 points in the paint compared to 18. I'm sorry, that's what they do. That's what the Minnesota Lynx do. And so I just felt like they took care of business, especially that third quarter, second and third quarter. Really, those little middle periods were so big and just really imposing their will on both ends of the floor. And so I think Minnesota had 5 players in double figures. You look at the plus minus. It just across the entire roster, and it was just a really steady and consistent win. Natisha Hyman plus 32 with 18 points in 26 minutes of play. Nafisa Collier finished with 20, and I mean, and only played 26 minutes. I mean, didn't even have to play the fourth quarter. So I mean, that is the type of performance that I currently have. That's the type of expectation I have for this current Minnesota Lynx team, that they come into a game like this, first round of the playoffs, game 1, and they take care of business in the manner in which they did. I think we've seen that from this team all year long, and so I'm not surprised. But yeah, I mean, it's a huge win for Golden State to be in this situation. But your hope, if you're the Minnesota Lynx, is you take care of business in a sweep, you get this taken care of in 2 games, and then you give yourself a little bit of time to continue to prep and prepare for that round 2.
Because that round 2 is going to be intense. And no, I'm completely with you. And that's kind of, look, there's many storylines. And as we always talk about, if you listen to this podcast, you know that we could argue ourselves and debate ourselves about this for hours, about any aspect of it. Because, like, we understand Minnesota's by far the better team. They beat them 4-0 sweep in the regular season. Now they're 5-0 on the season as a whole. Game 2 is on the 17th. In Golden State, not their normal arena. Obviously, that sucks, especially considering what the Valkyries have been able to do for that home court for Valhalla has been truly, truly impressive. But, so those are like, you start to argue with yourself. You're like, okay, but like, you have the crazy home crowd, you got a little bit of travel. Is Minnesota like they're flying high? Do they kind of start focusing on the second round too much? That's what you start. I agree. I think, look, it's not going to be a blowout by 30 some points,
Right.
and it's insanely hard to go 6-0 on a team in a season, but
it's possible Golden State could win that game on Wednesday. I mean, I definitely think that there is a possibility that that environment has been one of the best in the league all season long. There's a reason why this team has been really good, especially at home at times. And so, it's by no means a given. It's by no means like we're sitting here saying, oh, okay, they're just going to roll over. It's done. That's not the point. I just think Minnesota, my expectation from what I've seen from this team all season long is that they will take care of business. And as they did in game 1, they'll turn around and do something similar in game 2. I don't think, like you said, I agree. I don't think it'll be a 30-point blowout, but being able to go in there and win within at least a somewhat comfortable margin is kind of what I'm predicting. But I guess that's why we got to play the games, right?
Yeah, can't look past it. No, I'm with you on that. Look, I think it's almost like we will learn a lot about this Lynx team. I think for the past month, it's been hard, right? We're trying to read the tea leaves when we see a loss, when we see a win, when we see these players resting, when it doesn't really have the same meaning that it does. And this can go into the MVP discussion, into a lot of award discussions. There hasn't been the same meaning for the Minnesota Lynx this past month that other teams had. And now everybody has that same meaning, that same demand game in and game out, because every game matters like that. So I'm judging this next game, game 2, to understand, it's been a long season. This is the longest season in WNBA history, right? We saw them come out firing off of that heartbreaking loss in the finals. And then we got to a point in the season where it no longer was as impactful or as meaningful to get those victories. And now we're in the playoffs. Do they still have that fire from that game 5 loss? That's what we're going to learn. Do they have that charge forward, dominate whoever is in front of me mentality that you need to win a championship? Or have they kind of been lulled into this sense of security? That's my question. That's my thought. Obviously, the Valkyries have the ability to win the game. But obviously also Minnesota has the ability to control, dominate, and get ready for round 2. Okay, next up, the most interesting game of the night, New York Liberty, Phoenix Mercury goes to overtime. Look, the fourth quarter was a little bit rough, for lack of better terms, right? It was a 10-8 final score in the fourth quarter. Alyssa Thomas has an opportunity to finish the game with time basically expiring. A shot that I would say, 50 out of 51 times she makes. Doesn't go in, rolls out, goes to overtime. And what we've seen from New York, if you give them opportunities, they will take advantage of it. Similar to that chance in the game 5 of the WNBA finals last year. They control overtime 11-4, moving on to win. What was your takeaway from that game? Obviously, I'll just put it out there. There are questions about Stewie's health. Injured in overtime, I believe it was late in the fourth. I think it was overtime or late in the fourth.
Yeah.
And possibly re-injuring the knee bruise. Not sure. We should learn some stuff possibly by the time this goes live. But what was your takeaway from that game?
I know. It was my understanding it was a different knee. Correct me if I'm wrong. But
no, I just saw knee, so I'm just. Yeah. And I saw some speculation. So perfect. Happy. Good.
Well, that very first thing was the most kind of like, okay, what does this mean for Brianna Stewart moving forward? I guess we will find out maybe today, maybe later on tomorrow. Certainly hope she's okay. Man, I think everybody anticipated this game. Everyone kind of had this circled on the lineup of, okay, this has a lot of intriguing elements to it. The fact that the New York Liberty were in the Valley playing on the road is still blows my mind with this team a little bit. And I just got to say, I think New York, they took care of business. It wasn't the prettiest game for either team, but they found a way to come out on top. And I think even more than anything, the Phoenix Mercury, it's a missed opportunity. It's a missed opportunity. The fact that you have a chance to win the game, the ball in the hands of Alyssa Thomas for a final shot. It was a good look. I mean, it was just literally like, it was literally just like, we're going to let her get downhill and create at the rim. And 9 times, I don't think 50 out of 51 times, but 9 times out of 10, she makes that shot. But when you allow that to go to overtime, I think New York had a ton of momentum in that moment. It just sucks because it's a 3-game series, and whoever takes that first game, we all know that it is like end all be all. And for it to come down to just one missed shot, but in the same breath, I mean, for the Phoenix Mercury to have a chance to win the game when arguably your second best player, Satu Sabali, is 2 for 2 of 17 from the field, and still have a chance to win the game. I was like, oh my gosh, like they definitely did not play great. Phoenix did not play great. New York did not play great. They had that opportunity. And I think, a lot of people look at one shot about, oh man, if that goes down, this is a completely different. Sure. But there's 1,000 other possessions happened in that game. Especially, late in that fourth quarter, there were some decision making and shots. You just like the value of shots that were being taken at times, I think, were questionable. What types of shots was Phoenix deciding to take late in the game that were maybe not necessarily as in rhythm or as higher percentage, whatever it may be? They didn't play great. They had an opportunity and they fell short. So now they got to go to New York with a question mark of Brianna Stewart's health. I expected this to go to 3 maybe, but I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of question marks here of, is Stewie going to be a part of the equation? Having Phoenix out on the road in New York, I don't know. Does New York sweep this? What are your thoughts in terms of just kind of what's going to happen here the next couple of days in this series? I mean, I think everybody knew this was kind of the one that was the most interesting matchup wise.
Most definitely. I do want to say, first off, you brought up a really good point of impressive that Phoenix was in this game. When we talk about this Phoenix Mercury team, first of all, 20 turnovers for New York. They got dominated on the board, 48-31, just 10 turnovers for the Mercury, but they shot 23% from the 3-point line and 32 from the field. So this has been something you and I have talked about last year and this year, but it's been very clear that this team lives and dies by their shooting, especially the 3-point shooting. And for them to be that close with how badly they were shooting in this game is really impressive and does speak to that. So I think that is something they can hang their hat on and hopefully go into that game too saying, hey, we played like crap. We had a bad game. The second quarter was great, right? We scored 30 points. We let up 27. That was just, a shootout at that point. And then it kind of, everyone tapered off, cooled off. They have an opportunity. These teams are extremely evenly matched, I think, when we talk about a playoff series. If it was a best of 5, I think it goes 5. Obviously, being a best of 3, you have that ability for New York to really put their foot on the gas and just run away with this and finish it. I don't think Phoenix is going to go down easy. Alyssa Thomas and DeWanna Bonner are not just going to go down easy. But the other thing is, we've also seen this story with Alyssa Thomas and DeWanna Bonner together. Now, yeah, they didn't have the offensive firepower on their roster of Kalia Copper or Satu Sabali. But again, if Satu's shooting 2 for 17, who else is on this roster that's going to step up and provide that depth of scoring? Because
that's just an incredibly difficult. I think I saw a stat today that was that's one of the up there for one of the worst shooting performances with over 15 shot attempts. And that just sucks. I mean, that's your second leading scorer, I believe, averaging just under 16.5 points per game. It's just, I don't expect her to have back-to-back shooting performances like that. Those types of things are extremely rare. And I think you have to give some credit to the New York Liberty and their scheming. They were going to take out some type of element within that New York or within that Phoenix Mercury rotation. And I think they did a really good job scouting that and just making her shots uncomfortable enough earlier on the game where she never was able to find a rhythm. So, I mean, I don't anticipate that type of performance again out of a player of Sabali's caliber. But yeah, I mean, like you said, I think I was sitting back and I was feeling kind of sad for the Phoenix Mercury after the game because I was like, man, they had a chance to win this game, but and that not winning game one could ultimately very easily end up meaning you're out of this series. But at the same time, they had a chance to be in that game, and they probably, based on having Satu Sabali play that poorly from the perimeter or the way she shot the ball, like it was impressive they were even in it. So I don't know whether it's a reflection of the New York Liberty finding a way, the Phoenix Mercury finding a way to be in the game. Whatever it was definitely just a grind of a game, I think, for both of those teams. So it's going to be interesting to see, okay, now we're going back to New York. What are the elements at play here with Brianna Stewart? And, can the Phoenix find a way to push this back to the Valley? Because obviously it's do or die.
Yeah, it's going to be really, really interesting. Honestly, also the Mercury's recent struggles of playoff winning I forgot what it was. They haven't won a game one playoff in a playoff series in way too long, surprisingly long of a time. No, it'll be really interesting. Honestly, maybe this is we get into the playoffs and me, I start speaking in maybe outlandish, crazy things. Is this a failure of a season for the Mercury if we're talking about an 0-2 exit in the first round against the Liberty? I look at that and I go, okay, maybe that's a little bit out of pocket to say, but at the same time, look at what they did during the offseason. Look at what they were trying to build and look at where they were at one point this season and the moves they made mid-season to push themselves to be in a better contention spot. So I have a lot of concerns about that. I've already talked about some of those moves not necessarily fitting into the style, the motivation, and the vibes of that team at that time. And another team that I think that more so than the Mercury fits into this has to be the Seattle Storm, who just got waxed last night by Las Vegas Aces. 102-77, just completely dominated from start to finish. They scored 12 points in the first quarter, 13 points in the second quarter, and then finally get going 27 and 25 in the third and fourth. This is a roster I want to remind people, we've held back because we're not going to be here someone who's calling for anybody's job or anything like that. But there has been what's the most kind way I can say this? This roster is too talented to be performing the way that they are. It is borderline embarrassing. I mean, you lose 77-102 in the first round of the playoffs. I'd be embarrassed. And this is a team that traded for Brittany Sykes mid-season. The quotes coming out of that were, we are a team contending for a championship. That's why we're bringing this player in. And it just has not, I don't know. You and I were texting, Rachel. It almost feels like this might be a crazy comparison, but before Dan Hughes, when Jenny was the head coach, and before the team was just underperforming, then Dan takes over and it flipped a switch and all of a sudden they were starting to contend. It feels like we have a roster that just something needs to be different. And once you flip that switch, they can contend because you have NECA, Gabby, Ezzy, Skylar, Brittany Sykes, Malunga, Erica. We're talking about, they have depth. I mean, people are like, oh, well, they don't have depth. Yeah, they don't have 3-point shooting, but they have depth. They have star power. What is missing?
To me, watching that game yesterday was they're missing, the best way to describe it is they're not polished. First and foremost, you come out and you're down 45-25 in the first half. Okay, so whether not being ready to go in Las Vegas against the team that's the hottest team, arguably one of the hottest teams in the history of the WNBA in terms of streaks, I don't have words for that because I don't know how you don't get up for something like that. They seemed very, and I'm not pinning it on one player, I'm not pinning it on one person, I'm just telling you my observation as a former coach. What I watched, they just seemed very discombobulated, coming down the floor, and like the timing of cuts were off. Like you've played together all season long. There is a certain chemistry and a certain rhythm that you move with up and down the floor, and they were all off. The timing was off. One time the ball, like we're like throwing the ball out of bounds, damn near basically throwing the ball down at people's feet and ankles. I do want to give credit to the Las Vegas Aces. That was not that I've seen every game this year because I haven't, but that was one of the most on point defensive efforts I've seen out of the Aces in terms of they were like on a string. A lot of coaches talk about the movements and rotating together, being on point, their timing, the way they picked up in the full court, the way they picked up in the half court, their rotations on the backside when the ball was in the midair, they're moving on the flight of the ball. Everything was just really on point from a defensive standpoint. And I feel like that smothered Seattle a little bit, did take them out of their rhythm. It's not like, okay, like you have to give credit to Las Vegas for the way Seattle looked coming out. They were so offensively inept that first half in particular, just could not hardly function on the offensive end of the floor. Now, like, again, give you credit, the Aces, but I just don't know. They just, this team just, it's missing. They haven't clicked. They're not on point. They don't seem, what is the right word? Discipline isn't the right word. It's just like there's something from the way we run our organization, like a fine-tuned oiled machine where crisp removed, something was lax. Something was missing. They were not prepared to walk into that moment with a team that is running like a fine-tuned oiled machine at all cylinders. They looked like a broken down machine, and so it just, I don't know. I don't know. We've struggled with this team all season long, and it's frustrating. And obviously, I think everybody agrees that there's something's going to have to give because it just hasn't worked. There's so much talent on this team, and I think we've maybe seen it in small flashes, the potential of how good this team could be. But again, we were talking about this after week 2, the 40-minute consistency. It's even gotten worse at times as the season has gone on. Just. I don't know. Anyway, I mean, it's really weird to look at some of these numbers. Nneka Ogwumike, minus 33. Gabby Williams, minus 22. Skylar Diggins, minus 22. Erica Wheeler off the bench, minus 21. And then you look down to Las Vegas Aces and just the absolute efficiency. Jewel Lloyd, plus 30 off the bench. I mean, I don't know. It was just dominant. And it just felt like Seattle, they didn't, either they weren't ready or they were incapable of meeting the moment.
Yeah. Yeah, you touch. There is so many things we could go on this. No, like I'm with you. It's from a overall, like you were saying, organizational standpoint, the level of standards did not seem to be up to snuff. Yeah, I mean, it looked like a pickup game to almost, right? When Seattle had the ball, it looked like it looked like a preseason game. Maybe that's a little harsh.
And there was also so much like body language, just frustration out of Seattle. I mean, you saw Skylar Diggins had to leave the game at one point. I saw Dom Malonga was just beside herself, whether it was some of the calls or she wasn't agreeing, but you just saw the body language, the frustration of a lot of the Seattle players yesterday. It was just like a perfect storm, if you will. I'll be interested, like, okay, going back to Seattle at home, that's got to help the situation. How do you perform when your back's against the wall? And so I expect a better effort, but I just don't think we've seen enough from this Seattle team I don't even know if we could warrant a win. I don't know that they could win a game in this series.
That's the thing. I mean, with the way Vegas is playing right now, like, let's be real. You talked about seeing some flashes this season from this team of like, oh, could they do it? I would almost argue that we saw less flashes than last year, right? Where last year, which was a struggle bus of a year, but we saw those flashes and we held on to hope of those flashes. Similar to this season, but I think there was less flashes. And heck, they almost were not a playoff team, which is completely mind-bogglingly absurd to me for a team of this roster to be on the playoff bubble is just mind-blowing. And yeah, I'm with you. It's like, on the one hand, yes, I could see this actually being a competitive series because if the Storm play up to their roster's potential, but we haven't seen that. And at a certain point, we just need to accept it, right? Like, I was having this thought as I was trying to fall asleep last night. All the WNBA excitement got me up. But in today's day and age, I feel like people are so scared to say they were surprised about something, right? And so we all want to be the one who knows it. We all want to have the correct prediction about these teams. And I'm done doing that. Right? I'm just going to speak my mind. I don't think the Seattle Storm have it. Will I be surprised if they win game 2 at this point? Yes. We haven't seen it during the series. I haven't seen it, during the season, and I haven't seen it in game 1. Obviously, I expect them to play better. These people have a lot of pride in themselves, as they should. These are some of the best basketball players in the world. That said, I just don't think they have it from everything I've seen all season long, to expect anything more than, already having what's
Right.
the new WNBA ad, like, one of these teams is about to have a really quiet, awkward flight home. Or I guess it's not a flight home if you're playing at home. So I guess that's kind of nice, right? Is if the top seed wins, then at least like you don't have that awkward flight home because the team's already there. All right, last game that happened. Actually, for a lot of the game, seemed to be one of the more exciting competitive matchups of opening playoff day. Indiana Fever lose 68-80 against the Atlanta Dream. Like I said, pretty close matchup until the fourth quarter, where Atlanta was really able to extend that and kind of take control. Impressive showing from Kelsey Mitchell, goes 9 of 18 for 27 points, but 1 for 4 from the 3-point line. The team in general shot 2 for 15, so that was a little bit of a struggle. But look, like, this Atlanta Dream team, right? Like, I know I have them penciled in to face the Aces in the next round, and I think that's going to be a really good matchup, even though the Dream didn't beat them. Any thoughts on this? I mean, I feel like the Fever are almost similar to the Valkyries in the sense of, like, the story of your season is so great, and I love it,
Wow.
and I'm so happy for you. But, like, this isn't a Disney movie where this, like, the team that has like the hardest story to get here is going to win the championship. And I think they're just reaching the end of the road. What do you think?
I mean, Atlanta Dream took care of business in the paint. They did a great job, 40-34. That's what they should do in this particular matchup, in my opinion. And then you look at the 3-point percentage. I mean, the Fever go 2 of 15 for 13%. Atlanta Dream 7 of 22 for 32%. That's the difference of the game right there. I mean, case in point, just looking at the stats, that's what I see. And then, the Indiana Fever are fortunate enough to have a player who is a potential first team all ballot coming in to just kind of throw this team on her back and try to push them as far as they can this season, which she's done all season long. Kelsey Mitchell's been fantastic. But is it enough against a team like the Atlanta Dream, who are much deeper than the Fever right now? They have much more experience out there in the core when it comes to playoff basketball. And so I agree. I think it's just a matter of, like, when does this current Fever team meet the end of the road? Like, it's kind of like, part of me is even surprised they're in the playoffs still. I mean, it's kind of like, okay, we're here. That's great. But this year in some ways has just been a very strange, very injury-ridden, difficult year. But I do think you have to give, they're in the playoffs and they are up here competing until the very end, one way or another, from top to bottom. And Kelsey Mitchell deserves a ton of praise, in my opinion, for the job that she's done. But I just think we've gotten to a point with this Carl Smesko Atlanta Dream team where we've kind of learned what they can bring to the table and how they can consistently play with their ability to shoot the basketball, even though it wasn't like a great offensive performance out of them yesterday, but they were a lot better than the Fever. And so I don't know. I mean, again, I think for the Fever to make it to the playoffs a second year in a row, and you don't have Caitlin Clark in the rotation and you're missing 5 other players out of injury, I mean, what do we expect from this team? What do we expect from this team to walk away from this at the end of this month and think, oh man, that was a loss of a season, or man, that was it's a disappointing season no matter which way you spin it because of the injuries. But I think there's a lot of positives that can be taken, especially out of some of the individual performances and the way this team did come together and find ways to be competitive and find ways to be in the playoffs. But the Atlanta Dream, they're just better right now. They're deeper, they're better, they're bigger. They should control the paint. They have more weapons than what the Fever have right now. And so, I mean, I'm not surprised of the outcome of that game. I think that the Dream Team is a team that has the potential to make a relatively deep playoff run.
Oh yeah, I mean, look, I think this is the second series or the next round, looking like Ace's Dream is going to be super super interesting. Love to see that. Obviously, on the Fever side, look, if you have Sims and Mitchell as your only double-digit scorers, Leah Boston going 3 for 9, 0 for 2 from the 3-point line, just 8 points. Natasha Howard 5 points. Like, those are the players that you need to step up and have big games if you're going to create those upsets. And yeah, like, this Atlanta team is built for a deep playoff run. They are like, can they get over the Las Vegas hump? I don't know, but they are a team that is what their focus is. That, like, this is part of their journey. We expect that. And like, for the last thing I'll say about the Fever is, like, through the trials and tribulations of roster issues last year to then coming into this year with such unattainably high expectations that were just crazy out of the world, to all of the injuries, to losing Dwana Bonner, to even more injuries, to then finding it, they at least they feel like a team. They feel like a family. They feel they have that togetherness that they can really use to move forward. So again, I think there's a lot of positives that came out of this season for Indiana, but we know they're not competing for for a championship right now. I guess it is an international championship once we include Toronto into it, right, Rachel? But yeah, no, really, really impressive. Ryan Howard goes off for 20, Alicia Gray for 20, Nas with 16, Bree Jones with 12. Just, the Atlanta Dream. It's going to be really, really interesting. The second round, the semifinals, to me are going to be for what? Because, like, I feel like, from my take, fine. If we're going down this, like, what do I have? I have the Dream sweeping the Fever. Agree, disagree?
Yeah, I agree.
I have the Aces sweeping the Storm.
I agree.
I have Minnesota sweeping the Valkyrie.
I agree.
I have Mercury Liberty going to 3.
And I don't know, are all 4 of those gonna sweep? Like, who do I think I am with this prediction? Like, somebody's gonna get beat. I think logic tells you that the Mercury Liberty's going to 3, so I'm gonna agree with that. But there's something in my gut that says that there's one other of those other 3 matchups that something's gonna happen. Valkyrie maybe in Minnesota up there in Golden State, like, something crazy goes down up there and it's like, whoa, okay, hold on. I mean, that's definitely not out of the equation. I see that probably a little more likely than the Storm finding a way to beat the Aces right now. So I don't know. Yeah. I mean, I'm going to agree. I think all 3 are a sweep, and then maybe Mercury Liberty go to 3, but, like, come back to this when I tell you I feel like there was going to be another random.
The one that I think is random, I've already given my whole spiel about the Aces Storm, so, like, I'm not going back on that. Minnesota, I'm gonna withhold thoughts because it's my Minnesota bias of, like, being harmed as a Minnesota sports fan for so long that makes me, because no, and that's something about Minnesota that I have struggled as an individual to talk about the Lynx this season, because every Minnesota sports team has that failure. So I have that question in the back of my head, but and Minnesota doesn't have the crazy 5 superstars that are, like, all over Sports Center or top 10 and all these things. But at the same time, they have taken care of business professionally. And so, like, I have to give them the benefit of the doubt on that. I would not be surprised if the Indiana Fever find an absurd way to pull off a win.
All are possible, yeah.
Yeah, that's the one. I'll say I think Phoenix, New York is going 3. I would not be surprised if Indiana finds a way to pull off the victory against the Atlanta Dream. Keep in mind on 7-Eleven, gotta shout out 7-Eleven, Dave. make sure you would have gotten your free Slurpees or whatever. But Indiana did win 99-82 over the Atlanta Dream in that game. Obviously, Sophie Cunningham was in that game. Aryeh McDonald was in that game. Sid Colson was in that game. But finding a way to win, and you were going up against a full roster of Atlanta Dream. So that's kind of where my thought is. I guess we touched on all of it, Rachel. I appreciate you. In the middle of your...
you gotta
move. You gotta finish packing, moving.
I'm in my house right now, guys. I bought a house 2 days after I came back from Europe. It's just been an absolutely chaotic summer. So everybody who's listening, if anyone's listening, was on 3 different continents this summer and bought a house, and now it's just, your girl's going through it. But I'm here, and I'm locked in for the playoffs. So I gotta go pick up some paint from Sherwin-Williams though. So
well, cool. And then we'll have the new studio, and then eventually we'll be doing live shows from Rachel's new house where everybody can come. It's an open door policy for anybody who subscribes to the podcast who's allowed in. Appreciate you. We'll be back and we'll chat more WNBA playoffs later.